Today's synth was by no means rejected when it was first released in 1993. The mighty Bass Station was Novation's first synth and a huge success back in the day. It was soon followed up in 94 with a rack version that provided a hugely expanded patch memory, CV controls and a filter input, and received a major overhaul in 97. The Super Bass Station added a ton of new features like noise and a sub-oscillator, an arpeggiator, analog distortion and stereo chorus effects. It is certainly the most desirable of the three, but by far also the rarest one, because 97 had already marked the advent of all digital DAW music production and plugins, so the Super Bass Station only reached a fraction of the sales of the original Bass Stations. In 2013, Novation released a much improved Bass Station 2 that is still sold and improved by software updates to this day. This video got made in the famous year 2020, by the way, so if you are watching this in the future, nice to see that humanity seemed to have survived 2020. So, with that out of the way, why should you care for this plastic monstrosity from 93 at all? Well, for once, the chubby little fellow's appearance already gives a slight glimpse of all the fatness that is to come. The Bass Station really oozes funky old school fatness, and while it probably seemed to be a smart move to market it as a Trio 3 replacement, so much so that a whole segment of the manual is dedicated to explaining how to emulate the Trio 3 sound on a Bass Station, this really doesn't do it any justice at all. It features a much more complex and versatile approach to sound shaping and is capable of a wide range of bass and lead sounds. Let's go through the basic controls now and see what does what. From left to right. There are controls for volume, portamento and memory selection. The latter only has 7 save spaces for patches, but patch dump and loading are implemented via the keyboard's utility mode and therefore done quickly. Next there is the LFO section with speed and depth controls. Oscillator 1 and 2 can be mixed in the mix section. The second oscillator offers additional controls for different scales of detuning. Both oscillators are, by the way, DCOs, or digitally controlled oscillators. There's a toggle switch for saw and square for both, by the way. There's also a dedicated oscillator modulation section. The analog filter section offers a selection between 12 dB and 24 dB filters, as well as controls for frequency, resonance, as well as mod depth. Sadly, my frequency knob has died and even replacing the pot didn't help, but luckily filter cutoff can also be controlled via the mod wheel. To the very right you find the envelope section. There are 2 classic ADSR envelopes plus velocity control. The first one is for volume and the second one can be utilized for filter or oscillator modulation. To the bottom left, you also get a mod wheel as well as a pitch wheel and octave select switches for the keyboard. As you can see, there is a massive load of additional controls compared to your average Trio 3 clone, and it's no coincidence that the setup of features and controls might remind you of another British plastic synth. Chris Huggett, known for the development of the legendary EDP Wasp, was also involved in the design of the original Bass Station. And just as the Wasp, of which it inherited some of its circuitry, the Bass Station is capable of some mean and powerful sounds you wouldn't expect from its toy-like appearance. It is often argued online that the second Bass Station, while vastly superior in features, never reached the rawness and the fatness of the first Bass Station sound. As this really has been more than enough introduction now, I've programmed 7 basic patches to give you an idea about the power and the versatility of the good old Bass Station 1. The first patch is just a plain single oscillator saw wave, no filter, next to no envelope. On the next patch I've mixed in some of the second oscillator and I manually control the filter with the mod wheel. On the third patch I let the second envelope do the filter sweeping. And now you might want to turn the volume down a bit because number 4 has resonance on full blast. How about a bit of square wave mixed in this next one? For number 6 I pulled an old trick out of my sleeve, second oscillator tuned up 5 steps. And for the grand finale I pulled out all the stops, full fatness ahead. So, those were the 7 presets I created for this video. Even though I feel it has a very strong funk vibe to it, of course, as this thing was conceived during the early 90s techno craze, I can't end this video without making it rave a bit. So let's plug in a MIDI plug and play a nice arpeggio while fiddling with all those knobs for at least a bit. Here we go. So once more we've reached the end of the video. Even though my bass station has certainly seen better days and the cutoff knob just won't cut it anymore, I wouldn't want to miss it just a bit. While I also own a bass station 2, which is, by the way, a great synth on its own right, the original bass station will always have a special place in my heart. It's just a chubby little heartbreaker. Having finally come out with my synthophilia, there's just one more thing to say. See you soon with another synth. But psh, don't tell my bass station, she's a jealous beast.